can I ask each one of you to mention about number of Iranian in each riding who has the right for voting, starting from you? What is the number you have in your
Well, as
riding?
I've always done it as an Iranian conservative with always very little. I've also, in the area where I live in, there isn't a huge population of Iranians, but we're going to change that. Right now, most Iranians live on the right-hand side. So I'm urging all of you, when you're buying your homes, go west of Bathurst. And that's the only way you get to be in that riding. So my riding, as I said, is going to be, not my riding, but the riding of King Vaughan will be between Bathurst to Highway 50, roughly from Major Mackenzie to Highway 9, which is Dana Drive.
Number. What is the number?
Of Persians?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
Is the nomination in the Conservative Party, is that a free nomination, or Mr. Harper would nominate the nominees?
That is
Which one is
I-
going forward?
Well, it's, unless you know something I don't, they're all nomination, and they're all open nomination. Even members of parliament are facing nominations. I know that from experience because several of my friends who are members of parliament and I are working together in their nomination process, and they're working very hard signing membership. So I don't think any leader is going to be appointing any candidate. If that were the case, I don't think we'd be sitting here and asking you to sign membership. So it's, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure, look, let's not be blind to the side that all leaders have their preferences. Parties have their preferences as well, but in the end, you bring in your membership, you have the total number, you bring them out, and that's another thing I think we should discuss as well. Signing up memberships is just as important as bringing out your vote on nomination day. You can sign 5,000 memberships, but if you can only bring out 20 of them to a nomination meeting, it's a complete waste. So what we call GOTV, which is getting out the vote, applies to both nomination and election day. GOTV, and that's something that every team is going to be working very hard. It is probably the most important part of any campaign process, is bringing out our vote. Some use all kinds of tools today, especially with social media. It's going to be a great help to all of us, but bringing out the vote is going to be just as much of a challenge for us than to sign the memberships.
Michael, finally, how many your estimate is Iranian in your
I
riding?
think from what I was told, there are about 4,000 to 6,000 Iranians living in
That's
Bathurst. But again, the person that was telling me, he said, luckily in your area, every house and business that they move out, a Persian replaces them.
Yes.
So we're in good shape.
Payman, how many in Richmond here?
Well, don't have the exact number
Approximately, I know.
because you know,
I know.
since the
Yes.
boom of the
What is the last statistic?
somewhere around the 50,000,
50?
for the whole Richmond Hill.
50.
Actually, riding of Richmond Hill,
Uh,
based on the 2011 census, we have about 8%, or roughly about 8,000 Iranians, plus or minus. This is going back to 2011 census when we look at the numbers.
And the lily in the villa there.
In Vilmodel, we have 9.4% Iranian population, which to the number it will be about 10,000 residents. I
Probably
think.
less, because
Maybe less, but what? Vilmodel is a little bit tricky now.
I mean, based on your previous experience in Down Valley East, how many of these people would be sufficient, you think, to be nominated if they show up in the election day in nomination? Your experience, because you had this experience.
it's a bit difficult to predict these things. It also, first of all, I wanted to make a couple of points. It's important, it's obviously very, very significant that you appeal to a particular community in the riding, but I think if anyone wants to win, quite frankly, you have to transcend your own community. You could even have a very strong community like the Iranian community in Willowdale, but if other people aren't willing to support you, either on the first ballot or on the second ballot, you can't win it. These are heavily contested nominations. There's various candidates. So you can't only try to sign up Iranians. You have to go as broadly and try to appeal as many people as possible. That's the first thing. The second thing is, In the area of Willowdale, where we're running, that translates into essentially just short of 9,000 people. However, I should warn that the census is somewhat dated, so it's probably around, I think it would be safe to say there's about 10,000 Iranians in Willowdale. The other thing to bear in mind is there are three big, large groups in Willowdale. First one is the Chinese community, 20%. The second one, second and third, they're pretty much, who knows who's bigger, is the Korean and the Iranian community. And they're both around approximately 10%. I have to be really honest with you. My biggest concern, since we're talking about participatory politics here, is like imagine if in Willowdale you had 2 Iranian candidates, and there's also a gentleman who is originally Korean. Imagine if our community, the number of people who showed up were less than half of what the Korean gentleman's would be. People will say, wow, all the various political parties, they will take away from that particular lesson that maybe this community doesn't really care if there are any Iranians in political life. So for me, it's really, really important that me and Lily together, we really managed to mobilize.
Ali, we had this experience for Dr. Moridi. The show up of Iranian at the nomination stage was great impact in the Liberal Party. Therefore, we should not discredit.
Were
Yes.
amazing,
The
actually.
more number, the better for us.
The thing is, that in the nomination that you were talking about in Don Valley East, there's no question, there's absolutely no question that there are certain communities that sign up easier and they're a lot easier to mobilize. I alluded to the structural problem that we do have in the Iranian community, and it makes it very difficult on all of us. But in addition to that, there are certain communities that have the reputation for being very, very agile, very, very mobile. And those communities, as a general rule, are the Ismaili community is very, very
Jafari community in Richmond Hill is big.
The Jafari community in Richmond Hill, absolutely, is very, very big. And the reason for that is, again, there's a religious hierarchy. When the person at the top of that hierarchy tells their people that, you know what, we got to go support our guy, everyone listens and says, sir, yes, sir, and God bless them, good on them. They do actually, sign up memberships and they show up. And not a few other communities that are known to be very, very mobile, very agile, and very good at these things is the Tamil community, for example. And the Tamil community, for example, is pretty big in Richmond Hill. So other communities, Iranians, if there is an Iranian in the race, there's good evidence that they will participate.
Just as a cat.
Just to clarify, by 2015, the population of Richmond will reach about 200,000, and basically 8.5% of that would be Iranians. So if you calculate, it's going to be around 15. I said 50, so I apologize for that.
15,000.
So it's going to be around 16,000 Iranians living in Richmond.
That's correct, yeah.